Welcome to the London Free Press Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Gilbert. The Children's Aid Society, London and Middlesex, is looking for new foster families after they've had to send some of the children and infants in their care to communities outside of the area. So today I'm talking with London Free Press reporter Norman De Bono about this critical shortage and what CAS is looking for in new foster families. Hi, Norm. How are you?
Very well, Rachel. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. We're happy to have you on the podcast again today.
Good to be here.
Let's just talk about the shortage of homes. How many homes does CAS have now, and how many do they need?
Well, I mean, it seems to be a never-ending problem. I mean, I think that there's always a critical need for foster families to step forward and help children in need in the city, and that's been an ongoing need for years. But
Yeah.
it's sort of reaching a critical level now. You know, as we're out of the pandemic, I think the CAS, the Children's Aid Society of London and Middlesex, is finding that a lot of the families that stepped away from fostering during the pandemic are not coming back. So, I mean, they have, I think, more than 440 children and youth in need that in foster care, and they have about they only have about 100, I think, about 108 homes that are ready
Wow.
to foster kids. And of course, 5 years ago in 2018, they had more than 220. So there's been a significant drop through the pandemic of people opting out, retiring, saying, I can't really do this anymore. And that's fine. That's to be expected, right? I mean, you can foster for a while and then you want to step away from it. But there's not an influx of people coming in of new foster families.
Okay.
That's the issue for CAS. And as to why that is, I think they say it's an awareness issue that, again, through the pandemic, people CAS sort of dropped off the radar in terms of profile. So they're looking to raise
Why
that
do you
profile
think that
again.
is? What about the pandemic made them drop off the radar?
I think that people became so focused on just, struggling through the pandemic. We were
Yeah.
sort of, at home and we were off work and we were not going out. And
Yeah.
then once that sort of eased, we started transitioning back into society, that the idea of fostering children in need perhaps wasn't front of mind,
Mm.
as we became sort of insular and more inward thinking. So going forward basis, they want to raise their profile again, and they're going to do that with some public events. But also, they just want to get the word out that there is more need than ever,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that for the first time ever, though, they're seeing a disturbing trend, and that is infants in care. So they have kids about okay, I'm going to get this wrong, about 20 kids who are infants, like 0 to 2 years old, newborn to 2
Okay.
years old,
Right.
and they are 18 of them are placed in the city, but they've had to place 2 of them 1 and 2 hours away because they don't even have homes for infants. And this is always an area where
Mm.
there was always a lot of support for infants because, of course,
In the
we're not,
past.
yeah. And they're
Okay.
seeing that there is not as much support for infant care as there was in the past. So that's
Is
really
there
concerning.
is there a reason for that? I mean, are the foster homes just not set up for infants, maybe with all the things a baby would need, or
That could very well be. I think it just follows along the trend of why there was a decrease of that loss of more than 100 homes in the past 5 years, is that people just are not thinking of CAS, and they need to get the
Sure.
word out, and they need to sort of. They also said that the CAS told me that there's a stigma. They think there's a stigma that in order to foster, you have to have the big house and the two-parent family and
Mm.
the yard and the picket fence and the dog and as we also come out of the pandemic, we're also facing a bit of a housing crisis in Ontario.
Yes.
There
Yes.
are people who are perhaps not able to afford that home. They have a smaller rental property, and they may not feel as though they have the home to accommodate youth or children. And the CAS wants to get out the word that it doesn't matter what kind of orientation you are, if it's as a couple, as a family, or you could be a single parent. If you have a small apartment, if you have a home, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you can offer children care. And so they'll any orientation, any couple, any individual single parent,
Mm-hmm.
any kind of home setting. The important thing is that this is a person who wants to care for a child in need. So
Sure.
that's what they are uh, trying to get across now,
Looking
and
for.
that there's such a stigma about having to have the the perfect home, and that just isn't true, and it's not necessary.
Sure. There's all types of families for all types of kids, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's what they need. Are there any special skills that families would need, or training that they would need? I think, that might kind of deter some people thinking, oh, well, I
yeah.
don't have the capacity to deal with maybe the needs of these children, or
Well, that's a very
whatever
good
might
point,
come
and
up.
that's a very good point, and that's a good question. I mean, there is training that families have to undergo. You don't want someone to sort of come into a situation dealing with a child in need who can have some issues themselves
Hmm.
without some sort of support. So yes, there is training or education needed for families who undergo that, and of course, there's compensation. Yeah, the CES compensates families who take in children because of the increased cost.
Sure.
So they have to be careful about who they screen, of course. But I
Yeah.
mean, they I don't know if that has been a turnoff for some families in need. Perhaps it is, but I mean, they've always had that standard that families have to undergo some training and education.
Let's talk about children who've been sent to other communities, because you did mention some infants, of course, were sent elsewhere because we don't have room for them. But are all of the children, or how many children, and what are the ages, and
Right.
where are they going? Where are these kids being
So
sent?
so they have about 443 children in total care, and of those, more than 200 are 16 years and older. And there's a whole sort of criteria that kick in when you're sort of dealing with older children in need. But right now, the CAS has placed 75 children in London Middlesex homes. These are children and youth, and 51 are being placed outside. So that's a direct answer to your questions. 51 are being placed outside London, and they can go. Many of them go to the region. They go to regional communities. Some of them go far away as Hamilton and Belleville,
Mm,
which is not ideal because ultimately you want to reintegrate children and their families back together again if you can. And when somebody is an hour to 2 hours away, it makes that integration much more difficult. And
right.
also, there might be friends or other family members in the community that child could have a connection with, and
Yeah.
that sort of compromises that because they're farther away. So that's a last resort. You only do that when you actually have to. The fact that there are 51 out of 440 kids that are actually being placed outside the city in the region as well as faraway cities, that makes it very difficult, and that's concerning. And that's one thing they want to close a loophole on.
Yeah.
And remember, I mean, they have 20 infants, 0 to 2 years old. Two of those 20 are being sent outside the community as well.
Yeah. Have they had to send children outside the community for a while now? I mean, this has
Mm-hmm.
obviously been a growing problem since 2018 is what we're comparing the 2023 numbers to. So this is kind of just gone, the number of foster families have gone down and down over the last few years, I can imagine.
Yeah, there has always been an element of that. There's always been an element of sending kids away when there's no need, but they're finding 51's a lot, and
Hmm.
so they're concerned about that number is growing, that there's not enough of support here. I'm just going to go back and correct something I said earlier. Sorry, there
Yep.
actually have 44 infants in care, and only 24 have been placed in London. There are
Oh,
there
okay.
are 20 that have been placed outside the city. Now,
Mm,
18 of those 20 are in neighboring communities like Woodstock and St. Thomas and Sarnia
okay.
and Chatham, that are rural areas. So fairly within close distance, and two of those are farther away, 1 to 2 hours away. So that's where that concern is. I had those stats wrong. So
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's good to know. Um, let's talk about the older kids, because CAS cares for children up to age 23, and
right,
some of the older kids are maybe not placed with foster families, right? Like there's different
right,
models of care for them.
yeah, exactly.
What are some of the different types of homes or housing that they could be
Well,
placed in?
it really speaks to the challenge and the complexity that CAS is dealing with, and how difficult it can be, and so a lot of kids at 16 years old, if they have behavioral issues, some may be placed in mental health care facilities, which can foster depending on the level of care that's needed there. But
Hmm.
others might be placed in homes. CAS has actually rented homes and put kids in homes with staff in the residence to sort of um, help those kids, not only give them support, but help them transition out
Yeah.
of the CAS system, because that's another thing they have to do is they have to help these children and youth transition outside of the CAS eventually.
Hmm.
So they'll rent homes, and they'll have kids in homes, and they'll have staff there to help them transition out. And
Yeah.
they also have kids in hotel rooms when they're absolutely desperate. they'll have kids in hotel rooms.
Yeah, wow. So they're going to have an information night set up for anybody who's interested in fostering. When is that happening, and what kinds of things will they be talking about?
Right. So that's a great point. So if anyone is interested in finding out more about this,
Yep.
they are having a night on February 22nd from 6:30 to 8 p.m. It's virtual. So just go to the
Okay.
website at caslondon.on.ca, and there's a link on the page under the Foster Adopt link. And it's just basically a session that you can listen in on. And there's no obligation, of course, no commitment. Just
Okay.
get more information, ask questions. And so and this is part of their campaign that they're starting to sort of get the word out more, raise their profile, and tell people that, we are here and there is need in our community.
Yeah. Okay. So you don't have
So
to register. You can just go to their
just
website
go.
on the day
February
of, and
22nd, starting at 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m.
sure.
cslondon.on.ca website, and it's right there under the Foster Adopt link,
Okay.
and it's pretty easy to find.
Okay.
And it's
Yeah.
also, it's such an important issue.
Yeah, well, these children need homes and loving families to take care of them. And as you said,
Yeah,
all types of families are welcome. So that's good to know
definitely.
too, right? All kinds of kids all need all kinds of families. So thank you so much, Norm. We're going to watch your reporting at lfpress.com. If you want to check out this story of Norm's, the link is there in his story, lfpress.com, and we will watch for your further reporting. Thank you so much.
Rachel, always a pleasure. Thank you very much.